الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على عبد الله ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So it's a pleasure to be able to finally make it to the masjid. This has been arranged several times and قدر الله وما شاء فعل. It didn't quite work out each time. So by the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gathered us here, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He gathered us here today to gather us together in Al-Firdaus Al-A'la min Al-Jannah. Ikhwan al-Kiram, as the brother kindly said in the introduction, this is a very, very important poem. And to be honest, a lot of the time we miss things like this out. Rightly so, we busy ourselves with manzumat, poetry and studying of texts, mutun in different sciences. And recently, as I've been teaching in Al-Madrasat Al-Umariyah, as some of you may know, I teach 3 subjects. I teach Aqeedah, Hadith, and I teach Tarbiyah. And out of all of them, Aqeedah and Hadith kind of went as I expected. But the one that surprised me was the value of studying the adab and akhlaq and az-zuhd and tazkiyatun nafs. And it surprised me how valuable it is, and it surprised me how little we pay attention to it, despite it being extremely important and extremely valuable. So this poem is the poem of Abu Ishaq Ibrahim ibn Mas'ud ibn Sa'd At-Tujibi, who is known as Al-Ilbiri or Al-Ilbiri. You see it both ways, bil-kasri wa bil-fath. He died sometime around 460 after the Hijrah, give or take. So he lived in an early time of Islam. Something like, we're looking at something like 1,000 years ago, the time that he lived. And he lived in Granada, in Granada, in Al-Andalus, which is now, of course, Granada in Spain. And he was a known adib and a sha'ir, a poet, and he was known for his poetry and his eloquence in language. But he was also known for his zuhd, abstaining from the dunya, and for his the maw'idha that he would deliver, the wa'az, the admonition that would touch the hearts. Because of course the poets are of 2 types. There are poets who, they do what the poets do. They talk about ghazal and describe women and all of that. And there are poets who, they touch the heart and they talk about Allah and they talk about zuhd and abstaining from the dunya and keeping away from this world. And that's how Abu Ishaq rahimahullah ta'ala was. In fact, he's most famously known for a qasidah. He doesn't have a lot of poetry. His diwan is not very big. His collection of poetry is small. But he's very well known for some poetry in which he criticized the leader of Granada at that time, who took a Jewish theologian as his minister. And you remember, I don't know how many of you know this, but this was the golden age for the Jews. One of the only times that they were not being tortured and run out of a country was in Muslim Spain. And until today they recognize this, and those of them that are not Zionists, many of them will say the only time we ever had safety and security and peace, and the only time that we were able to flourish and our scholars were able to write, was in under the command or under the rule of the Muslims in Muslim Spain. So they were a powerful group, and they were well established. They had institutions and learning, places of learning. They had poets and they had scholars in that time. And the leader, the Muslim leader of Granada, he appointed one of these very senior Jewish figures as his minister. And Abu Ishaq wrote some lines of poetry. It is said that the poetry was so powerful in its effect upon the people that it caused the uprising against the Jews in Granada, which is famously known as, I think, the uprising of 1066, when many of the Jewish people in that area were killed. And some of them accused this poetry of stirring up the masses against him. But the reality is that he criticized the leader of Granada for hiring or for appointing this minister when he could have taken a Muslim to be his minister. For he was someone who commanded good and forbade evil. He was someone who had protective jealousy for Islam and desire for good for the Muslims. And the poetry that we're going to cover today, Taiyyah, the Manzuma Taiyyah, it's called Taiyyah because the end of the poetry is with the letter Ta or Ta and Alif, is a poem which is primarily a nasiha. It's an advice. And it's an advice to someone called Abu Bakr. And most of the shurrah, when they came to it, they said it was his son. I couldn't find in his biography a list of his children's names. Some of them said it could have been a student of his. Like in the Zahir, and what most of the people who explained the poem said, is that it seems that Abu Bakr is his son. And he's advising him and he's admonishing him. So it's a wa'adh. It's designed to touch the heart. It's designed to make you feel, I need to question yourself, to ask yourself, where am I going? Where do I stand in the sight of Allah? And it's an advice. And in this advice, there is advice to seek knowledge. There is advice to leave the world and competing with people in the worldly life. And there is advice to good manners and that which completes a person, the excellence of a person's manners. So all of this we're going to cover bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. The vast majority of copies of this poem reach 115 lines, but there is also a copy which is less than that, 112 lines. And there are some differences between them. I'm presuming the copy you guys have is the 115 lines. Maybe the copy of Sheikh Abdul Muhsin Al-Qasim. Yeah? Hafidhahullah ta'ala. You have that 112. Oh, that's in the first one. Okay, the copy, I also have a copy from Sheikh Abdul Muhsin Al-Qasim, which is 115. So, in any case, we're going to read both of them. There's some small differences between them, and there's some fawaid, there's some benefits. So don't worry if there's some slight differences. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll read both and we'll sort of highlight where the differences are. This poem has a particular status among Tullab al-Ilm, in that many of the scholars of Islam would give this poem as a nasiha to their students, and they would ask their students to memorize it. And this is reported from a number of people, that they would give this poem as an advice to their students. And they would say, just like the poet is advising his son here or his student Abu Bakr, so I'm also advising you with this advice. And I ask you to memorize it and to commit it to your memory and to remember it, because the advice here is very important. And the subject is very nice. It's actually, as we said, it's 112 to 115 lines, and it's very easy to memorize. There's some nice readings of it online that you can listen to. And also the topic is quite varied, and it comes over a lot of different things: advice, admonition, turning back to Allah, tawbah, good manners, seeking knowledge, keeping away from this world. And that's the topic that we're going to be talking about, inshaAllah ta'ala. Now, the way I'm going to do this is, I'm going to ask for Abdurrahman to read it for us, inshaAllah ta'ala. And I'm going to ask him to read any variations. So if you have a variation, just read the bayt twice. If there's a variation, sometimes the variation doesn't matter. Like the difference between in and low, it doesn't make a difference. But sometimes there's some different words in there and there's some benefits. And also, inshaAllah ta'ala, what we'll do is we'll try to not only explain what the words mean, but try and bring it back to some of the ayat and the ahadith to show that, I mean, this was written in an early stage of Islam. As we said, the poet lived towards the end of the 300s and the beginning of the 400s until the middle of the 400s after the Hijrah. So it's a reasonably early time of Islam. And a lot of what he says, you can bring it back to ahadith and ayat that we can take benefits from, inshaAllah ta'ala. This is the first time I'm doing this particular poem, so I'm not entirely sure of how long it's going to take, but we'll just see how far we get on, inshaAllah ta'ala, and we'll do our best. So you can begin, Abdurrahman, tafadhal.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين له الحمد الحسن والثناء الجميل وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له يقول الحق وهو يهدي السبيل وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أما بعد اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم اغفر لنا ولشيخنا وللمستمعين ولجميع المسلمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. قال الناظم رحمه الله تعالى: تفت فؤادك الأيام فتى وتنحت جسمك الساعات نحتا وتدعوك المنون دعاء صدق ألا يا صاح أنت أريد أنت أراك.
The poet, he begins rahimahullah ta'ala, تفت فؤادك الأيام فتى وتنحت جسمك الساعات نحتا. تفت فؤادك. فتى يفت. This word, what it means is to become broken and weak. And ضعف and also كسرة. So for it to become broken and weak, your heart becomes weakened by the passage of the days. And it's powerful here that the poet mentioned the heart. And he didn't just mention the body, because all of us know as you get older, your body becomes weak. You become weaker, you don't have the same strength, the same energy that you had before. But it's not just the effect upon your body. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ الْإِيمَانَ لَيَخْلَقُ فِي جَوْفِ أَحَدِكُمْ كَمَا يَخْلَقُ الثَّوْبِ فَاسْأَلُوا اللَّهَ تَعَالَى أَنْ يُجَدِّدَ الْإِيمَانَ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. He said, the heart, the iman that is in the heart of one of you, in the chest of one of you, it wears out like your clothing wears out. So if you imagine if you wore the same pair of socks for like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, and how long will it be before you end up with holes in them and they fall off your feet? Your iman is like that. Your heart gets affected by the passage of the days. It's not just your body. Your heart gets affected. Ikhwani, we go outside, we see all kinds of things that we wouldn't wish to see. We hear things we wouldn't wish to hear. We find ourselves in situations that we wouldn't wish to be in. And all of it rubs away at the iman inside of you. And we believe, of course, that iman is in the heart and the tongue and the limbs. And that there is talazum bayna al-zahiri wal-batin. There's a connection between your inner self and your outer self. So the reality is that you will see in your actions, in your salah, in your dhikr, in your dua, that your iman is wearing out. And you have to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to renew the iman that is in your heart. And this is what the poet rahimahullah ta'ala begins with, that your heart is weakened and broken by the passage of days. وَتَنْحِتُ جِسْمَكَ السَّاعَاتُ نَحْتًا. And naht, it's to chisel away, to chip away at something. Like the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, قَالَ أَتَعْبُدُونَ مَا تَنْحِتُونَ. Yani the thing that you carving, you're chiseling away at, the hours that go by, the time that goes by, it starts to chip away at your body. So you become old in the heart and old in the body as time goes by. And it weakens you, and eventually you're going to die. And that's what's intended by the second part. That time is chipping away at you, like the carpenter and the chisel. Like as the carpenter is hammering on the wood and the wood is chipping away, time, every hour that goes by is chipping away from you. Some of the Salaf, they said, يَا بَنَ آدَمْ إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ أَيَّامٍ فَإِذَا ذَهَبَ يَوْمُكَ ذَهَبَ بَعْضُكَ. They said, O son of Adam, you are just a few days. When one day goes by, part of you goes with it. Every day that goes by, you lose a piece of yourself. Like the carpenter that is chipping on the wood, every single day that goes by, you lost a piece of you. And that piece is never ever coming back. You can't glue it back on. It's gone from you. Every day that goes by, you lost something that will never come back. وَتَدْعُوكَ الْمَنُونُ دُعَاءَ صِدْقٍ أَلَا يَا صَاحِ أَنْتَ أُرِيدُ أَنْتَ. Al-Manoon is al-Maut, death. Death is calling out to you truthfully. It's a true call. It's not a lie. It's not false. It's not fake. Death is calling out to you. أَلَا يَا صَاحِ أَنْتَ. My friend, it's you that I want. I'm coming for you. أَنْتَ أُرِيدُ أَنْتَ. It's you that I'm coming for. نعم.
أراك تحب عرسا ذات خدر أبت طلاقها الأكياس بتا. أراك تحب عرسا ذات غدر أبت طلاقها الأكياس بتا. تنام الدهر ويحك في غطيط بها حتى إذا مت انتبهتا.
Also, what we can take from the previous bait is dhikrul maut, remembering death. Like the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, أكثر من ذكر حادم اللذات. Always remember, or frequently remember, the thing which will destroy your pleasure. All of your pleasures, everything you enjoy, the thing that's coming to destroy it is death. And then he said, أراك تحب عرسا ذات خدر or ذات غدر. There's two riwayat for the poem. I see you in love with a bride. And there's a bride, there's a girl that you love. ذات خدر. Al-khidr is a sitter. She's covered, veiled. Or ذات غدر, and she's deceptive. She's not being straight with you. أبت طلاقها الأكياس بتا. يعني أبت طلاقها, يعني the kayyis, the intelligent person, has already divorced her 3 times. يعني طلاقا باتا. The talaq, there's no coming back from. He says, I see you in love with this woman, and she's veiled from you. And I see that the intelligent people have already divorced her 3 times. And they divorced her, they can't bring her back again. Who is she? The dunya. She's the dunya. He's comparing the world and the love of this world to the love of a woman who is veiled. Why is she veiled? You don't see the reality of this world. From far, she looks beautiful. حُلْوَةٌ خَضِرَةٌ. The Prophet ﷺ described the dunya as being حُلْوَةٌ خَضِرَةٌ, sweet and green. From far, it looks the most beautiful thing. But if you lifted the veil up, you would realize the reality of what this dunya is. So he speaks to this person he's advising, Abu Bakr. He says, Abu Bakr, I see that you're in love with this woman and she's veiled. But if you saw the intelligent people, they've already divorced her and they're never going to take her back. And she is the dunya. She's deceptive. Yani this dunya is deceptive. It looks beautiful from the outside, but when you get involved in it, it just is, all of it is just ghururan, it deceives you. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described it, وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. This world is nothing but the temporary enjoyment of deception. It's deceiving you. You think it's something, but it's something else. Death is deceiving you. You think that you're going to live for a long time, and maybe death is waiting for you in the next minute, or the next hour, or the next day. You think that gathering this dunya is going to help you, and in reality, everything you gather from it is harming you. So the example he gave is a beautiful example. Al-Akyas, the kayyis, the intelligent person, has already divorced this dunya. They've already said that I don't want anything to do with you. You're divorced, divorced, divorced. أَبَتَّ طَلَاقَهَا الْأَكْيَاسُ بَتَّ. He's given her 3 times divorce, this dunya. And that reminds you of a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If I'm not mistaken, it's the hadith of Shaddad ibn Aus radiyallahu an, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Al-Kayyis man dana nafsahu wa amila lima ba'da al-maut, wal-ajiz man atba'a nafsahu hawaha wa tamanna ala Allah al-amani. Hadith in At-Tirmidhi and others, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Al-Kayyis man dana nafsahu. The clever person is the one who judges himself. Yani dana nafsahu, like Yawmuddin. He makes a judgment for himself. وَعَمِلَ لِمَا بَعْدَ الْمَوْتِ. And his actions are preparing him for after death. And he's acting for Jannah. His actions are for Jannah. وَالْعَاجِزِ, the one who is helpless, the one who can't do anything, the one who is foolish. مَنْ أَتْبَعَ نَفْسَهُ هَوَاهَا, the one who allows his soul to follow its desires. وَتَمَنَّى عَلَى اللَّهِ الْأَمَانِي. And that person does what? They rely on false dreams. They don't do any work. What do? They rely upon dreaming. Like the poet said, إِنَّ الْمُنَى رَأْسُ أَمْوَالِ الْمَفَالِيسِ. He said dreams are the currency of the bankrupt. If you don't have money, what do you have instead? Dreams. You don't have a nice car, but you go to sleep and you imagine yourself driving a nice car. You don't have a nice house, but you go to sleep and you live in a mansion. And you go to sleep, you fly on a private jet, whatever you want. That's what you have when you don't have anything in real life. In the dunya, it doesn't matter. It's not important. The reality is, though, in the deen, people are like this. When they go to sleep, they're a scholar, they are mujahid, they are taqi, they fear Allah, they pray their prayers, they see themselves in the highest place of Jannah. Like in today, they don't do the actions for it. The clever person is the one who puts himself to account and works hard for Jannah. And the foolish one is the one who is dreaming about it, but he's not doing anything for it. He said تنام الدهر ويحك في غطيط بها حتى إذا مت انتبهت. You're falling asleep for your whole life. تنام الدهر. The time is going by, your age is going by, your life is going by, and you're sleeping. في غطيط بها. Yani this long time is passing and you're dozing. You're sleeping. But when you die, then you'll realize. And this reminds us of the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرِ. أَلْهَاكُمْ أي أشغلكم. ألهاكم, it means أشغلكم. You become busy. You've been made busy by at-takathur, gathering everything together. You want to have more money, more children, more fame, more followers, more everything, and just more. Until you're carried to the graveyard. And when you die, then you realize what it is that you missed out in your life.
فكم ذا أنت مخدوع وحتى متى لا ترعوي عنها وحتى أبا بكر دعوتك لو أجبت إلى ما فيه حظك لو عقلت.
He said فكم ذا أنت مخدوع وحتى متى لا ترعوي عنها وحتى. How much have you been deceived and betrayed by this world? And how long is it going to take for you to turn back from following your desires and following this dunya? متى لا ترعوي عنها وحتى. And how long is it going to take for you to leave this dunya and turn back from it and turn yourself to something which matters and which is important? And so that's what he's calling out to Abu Bakr, telling him, I see you attaching your heart to this world. And there are some abiyat later on which come that indicates that Abu Bakr is still a child. Wallahu a'lam, and there's abiyat that come later on that he has not yet sinned. But he sees from him what? He sees from him that his heart is attached to the world. It's like when you talk to your young children and you ask them, what do you want to be? He says, I want to be rich and famous like this kafir and have all the things that he has. And you see the person going in that direction. As a father, you pull them back. You say to them, that's not what this life is about. We're not telling people to live in poverty. We're saying that it doesn't matter. Allah gives the dunya to those that He loves and those that He doesn't love. You could be wealthy and Allah loves you. You could be poor and Allah loves you. But wealth doesn't equal Allah's love, and poverty doesn't mean that Allah hates you. The dunya is not connected like that. Allah gives it to people and takes it from people. But the love of Allah is based upon your religion and your actions, your heart, your deeds. It's not based upon how much money is in your bank balance. So when you see the kids going towards this issue of being rich and wealthy and I want to be famous and popular, you stop them and you pull them back. And he says, how long is it going to take before you turn back from chasing the dunya? And chasing the dunya is a problem. And I want you to bear in mind something as a qa'idah, a principle. Having the dunya is not a problem. Chasing the dunya is. A person could be wealthy. You inherited it from your father, your grandfather. You did a business and your business went well. And it's something Allah gave it to you as a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not blameworthy. And it doesn't stop you being someone who is attached to the akhirah. But the problem is chasing the dunya. How many of us, we waste our lives? How many people, when they chase the dunya, actually get it? You can't even put a 0.00001%. If you want to search how many people that start a business, for example, how many businesses fail? I don't know, like 999 fail, one gets success, for example. It's not to say don't start one, it's to say don't chase the dunya. Do what you have to do to live, to earn, to pay your bills, to pay your house, to, spend on your family, to give zakah and sadaqah, but don't run after this world. I'm going to get more. And I see brothers, wallahi, the brother says to me, look, 10 years, I'm going to work for this dunya, and then after that, I'm going to seek knowledge. Wallahi, most of them, if you see him in 30 years, he's still chasing the dunya, and he didn't get it either. He's still chasing it, and he didn't get it. When are you going to turn back? And when are you going to stop being deceived and fooled by the life of this world? He said, Abu Bakr, this is the first time that he calls him by his name. And the qasida is also known as qasidatu Abu Bakr, like that. Not qasidatu Abi Bakr, but it's known as qasidatu bayna qawsayn, and in brackets, Abu Bakr, the poem that is called Abu Bakr, because he repeats it more than once in the poetry. He calls him, he says, Abu Bakr, yani ya Abu Bakr, da'awtuka, I'm calling you, law ajabta, if only you would answer, ila ma fihi hadduka law aqalta. What am I calling you to? I'm calling to that which is going to make you successful and fortunate. If you only thought about it, used your intellect, you would realize what I'm telling you to be is actually what's good for you, as opposed for what you're wanting in terms of this dunya.
إلى علم تكون به إماما مطاعا إن نهيت وإن أمرت.
What is the first thing that the poet rahimahullah ta'ala calls Abu Bakr to? He calls him إلى علم تكون به إماما. I'm calling you to be a person of knowledge, to seek knowledge, by which you will be an imam. And the imam here is the example for the people. And it's mentioned in numerous places in the Quran. رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. Our Lord, provide for us from our spouses and our children that which will be the pleasure of our eyes, and make us an imam for the muttaqeen, an example to be followed. Because the imam is the one you follow, right? In the salah, the imam is the one that you follow their actions, you take the lead from them. Who do we take our lead from? Who are the inheritors of the prophets? إِنَّ الْعُلَمَاء وَرَثَةُ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ. The scholars are the inheritors of the prophets. Knowledge makes you an imam, not the imam of the masjid, an example that people will follow. إِلَى عِلْمٍ تَكُونُ بِهِ إِمَامًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions what this imama fi deen requires. What does it take to be an imam in the religion? وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا لَمَّا صَبَرُوا وَكَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا يُقِينُونَ. We made among them imams to be followed, when they were patient and they had certainty in our ayat. And the key to those things is knowledge and practicing it. Calling to the knowledge about which Allah says, يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. Allah raises those who have been given iman among you, and those who have been given knowledge, many levels. إِمَامًا مُطَاعًا إِن نَهَيْتَ وَإِنْ أَمَرْتَ. You will be someone who is obeyed. People are going to obey you when you prohibit them and when you command them. And that is because ulul amri, the people who have authority over us, are two groups of people. As is found in the tafsir from a group of the Salaf, rahimahumullah ta'ala, in the statement of Allah Azza wa Jalla, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u al-rasula wa ulil amri minkum. O you who believe, obey Allah and obey the messenger and those in authority over you. They are al-ulama wal-umara. They're the scholars and they are the leaders, as in the rulers over you. The scholars have religious authority over the people. They tell you to do something, you ask for them a ruling, a judgment, and they tell you what is allowed for you to do and what is not allowed for you to do. And the Amir, the leader or the ruler, has worldly authority over you, right? They organize the country and who can come in and go out, and the army and the affairs of the Muslim treasury, and all of that is in the hands of the leader, the ruler. So ulul amri, they are al-ulama wal-umara. And particularly this is important for us in this country, because we don't have a wali amr who is a Muslim. Of course, it's not a Muslim country. We don't have a Muslim ruler over us. So who in reality as a Muslim community do we have over us? The ulama. That's a reality, because we don't have a Muslim leader who leads us as a Muslim community in the UK. But what we do have is we have people of knowledge. People of knowledge from outside, from within the country. And those are the people that have authority over us as a Muslim community. And of course we have to follow the laws of the land. But in terms of Islam, the authority we have over us here is the ulama. And so if you seek knowledge, you become a person whose words are listened to. When you say to someone, don't do this, people stop doing it. And when you say to someone, do this, people do it. And that is a great status to have for the person who does it justice. And later on in the poem, we're going to see that the reality is if you don't do it justice, it would be better that you didn't have that knowledge. فَلَيْتَكَ ثُمَّ لَيْتَكَ مَا فَهِمْتَ. How it would be so much better for you if you never understood. That's if you don't do it justice. But if you do it justice, this is what raises a people. There is a hadith which is weak, or an athar, forgive me, which is weak. However, the point of it is interesting. In the athar, the Muslim, obviously different Muslim cities all had a governor placed over them. This is in the time of any time of the Tabi'een, something like that. And each city like Mecca and Medina and so on has a governor over it, right? A ruler in charge of that city. And the Khalifa asks, who have you left in charge of Mecca? Who have you left in charge of Medina? Who have you left in charge of? And each place, they're all people who were new to Islam. They're not from the tribes, the famous Arabian tribes and the people of, whose great grandfathers were in charge. They're slaves, freed slaves. What put those people in charge? How could you put a freed slave in charge of Mecca, for example? Because of what he knows of the Quran. And the athar la yasih. It's not authentic. Like, as an idea to think about the position which Allah Azza wa Jal gave to those people of knowledge. If you look in the biography of Ata Abi Rabah, rahimahullah ta'ala, one of the great a'imma of the Tabi'een, Mufassir and a student of Abdullah ibn Abbas, he was a freed slave. And the Khalifa would come and sit next to him, and he wouldn't answer him till he finished the other students either. The Khalifa has to wait in line for him. The Khalifa has to wait in line for a freed slave. Why? Because Allah raised him with the Quran. So the Khalifa sits and waits And the Khalifa sits down in front of him and he lowers himself before him and he asks him, our Shaykh, what do you say about this and this in the Hajj? And he answers him. This is the meaning of مُطَاعًا إِن نَهَيْتَ وَإِن أَمَرْتَ. Become a person of a position in the society, a person whose statements are taken because of knowledge, not because of who your father or grandfather or tribe was. نعم.
ويجلو ما بعينك من غشاها ويهديك الطريق إذا ضللت ويجلو ما بعينك من غشاها ويهديك السبيل إذا ضللت.
نعم. There's no difference between tariq or sabil. So some of the narrations have tariq and some have sabil, and the meaning is the same. وَيَجْلُو, here what it means is to be clean, to cleanse, to be purified. What is in your eye, min ghishaha. Al-ghisha, like al-ghishawa, is like you can say you've got some dirt in your eye, or you've got something in your eye that you can't see properly. And so the knowledge of Islam comes and it cleans your eyes. So you imagine that you're in like a sandstorm, or you got this dust and dirt in your eyes and you can't see. And the knowledge of Islam comes along and it cleans your eyes. And now you can see clearly. And you can walk on the path, which is Allah's straight path. And that requires knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَوَمَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا يَمْشِي بِهِ فِي النَّاسِ كَمَنْ مَثَلُهُ فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ لَيْسَ بِخَارِجٍ مِنْهَا. Allah said, as for the one who was dead and we made him alive. How could a person be dead and then Allah made him alive? And we're not talking about his birth. And his heart was beating, but he was dead because there was no iman in it. There was no knowledge in it. أَوَ مَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا. He was dead because his heart was dead. فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ. And we brought his heart to life. How? وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا. We made for him knowledge so he could walk among the people. The nur here is knowledge. And that's why Allah calls knowledge a nur. It's a light by which you can see the path in the darkness. So when people don't know the right thing to do, and people don't know what's right and wrong, and people don't know whether they should do this or that, the knowledge you have is a light, and you can see, not for yourself only, but you can help other people to walk on that path. If you go astray, and here I want to focus for a moment on the statement of the Nazim rahimahullah ta'ala, وَيَهْدِيكَ الطَّرِيقَ إِذَا ضَلَلْتَ. Sometimes it is the case that we slip from Allah's straight path. That's the norm, right? كُلُّ ابْنِ آدَمَ خَطَّاء. Every single one of the children of Adam frequently makes mistakes. We slip and we go away from the straight path. There's an ayah in Surah Ali Imran which I always think is absolutely amazing when you think about it. In the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ ذَكَرُوا اللَّهَ فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا لِذُنُوبِهِمْ وَمَنْ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَلَمْ يُصِرُّوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلُوا وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the people who will be from the early people to Jannah. وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ. The ayat are talking about the people who race to Jannah, and the people who will be forgiven and will enter into Jannah. When Allah describes them, He describes them with things we know about. الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Allah describes them as being people who give charity, being people who conceal their anger, people who do ihsan to others. All of that is forgiveness and all of that is good. Then Allah describes them with something, if you think about it, it's very strange. وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً. Those who, when they commit a fahisha. The thing that's strange is, you don't associate fahisha with the people of Jannah, right? You don't associate the people of Jannah doing evil deeds. These are the people who are the early people to Jannah. They're the people who race to Jannah. They go ahead of other people. It doesn't mean that they never did something wrong. They did really bad things. But the difference is, they had knowledge of Allah, which brought them back to Allah when they did something bad. So it's not the case that the people who raced to Jannah never did anything wrong or never did anything really bad. You know, they just did small sins. No, sometimes the people who were the early people to Jannah and they raced to Jannah did huge sins. وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً. They did a fahisha, immoral, terrible, evil things. But because they knew Allah and they knew that Allah is the one to forgive them, they came back. وَيَهْدِيكَ الطَّرِيقَ إِذَا ضَلَلْتَ. If you go wrong and you go astray and you go far away from the deen and you start to do evil things, your knowledge will bring you back, inshallah. If it's sincere for Allah, that knowledge will bring you back and show you how to come back to Allah, even if you lost your way. Now.
وتحمل منه في ناديك تاجا ويكسوك الجمال إذا عريتا. وتحمل منه في ناديك تاجا ويكسوك الجمال إذا اغتربت.
The first one is أظهر, يعني the first one seems to be more in line with the line of the poetry. وتحمل منه في ناديك تاجا. النادي is a gathering of the people. And when you go to the gatherings of the people, you know, the majalis, the nadi, you're sitting around, all your friends gathered together, you'll have with you a crown. It doesn't have to be, you're not the most famous person in the majlis or the wealthiest person in the majlis. Maybe you don't own the place, the majlis. But the reality is, if you have knowledge, when you go into that nadi, when you go into that group of people, you're wearing a crown. That's the crown of ilm, the crown of knowledge. So people will turn to you and look to you and raise you up in that gathering because you have the knowledge which is going to benefit them. And it will clothe you with beauty even if you were naked. إِذَا عَرِيتَ. Meaning that, for example, let's imagine that you came and you're not wealthy. So maybe you had ripped clothes. Maybe the person didn't have, the Sahaba, some of them didn't have 2 pieces of clothing. The Prophet ﷺ said, do all of you have, أَوَلِكُلِّكُمْ ثَوْبَانِ. Do all of you have 2 pieces of clothing? Some of the Sahaba only had, he didn't have a top and a bottom. He just had 1 piece. So he had to wrap it on the top and the bottom and tie it up because he didn't have enough to buy 2 pieces of clothing. Like when that person sits in the gathering, وَلِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. The libas of taqwa, the knowledge, the piety, the status in the sight of Allah that person has, they're better than the wealthiest person in that gathering who has the cloak and the robe and the expensive clothing and everything. But everyone in reality looks to that person who's wearing the crown of knowledge. And so it's like he's saying, look, if you're fooled by the fact that people go into a gathering and there's wealthy people and everything, and people have these huge, gatherings where they invite them people to their big houses and everything. If you come with knowledge, you will be the person who has status in that gathering. If you come with knowledge, it doesn't matter if you don't come with the best clothing. That knowledge will clothe you. وَلِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. The clothing of taqwa. And here there's more than one tafsir for the clothing of taqwa. But here the clothing of taqwa, yani for you to adorn yourself with taqwa is better than anything that anyone can wear. The best clothing a person can wear, but for you to adorn yourself with taqwa, that is the best. ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. And so a person will have what Sheikh Bakr Abu Zayd rahimahullah ta'ala calls hilyatu talib al-ilm. Al-hilya is that which you adorn yourself with, you beautify, like the clothing that beautifies you. But the clothing that beautifies the talib ilm isn't the thawb or the ghutra or the shamagh or the cap or the whatever, yani the izar and the rida. The clothing that adorns the talib ilm, the beautification of the talib ilm, is in the adab, the manners and the behavior and the knowledge that they have.
ينالك نفعه ما دمت حيا ويبقى ذكره لك إن ذهبت.
ينالك نفعه ما دمت حيا. There's a variation on that. ويبقى ذخره also. Do you have that? نعم. ينالك نفعه ما دمت حيا. You'll continue to see the benefit of knowledge as long as you live. وَيَبْقَى ذِكْرُهُ لَكَ إِن ذَهَبْتَ. And the knowledge you pass on will cause you to be remembered even after you have long gone. So the knowledge that you have is what's going to cause you to be remembered. If you think about it, if you ask, for example, there's been many people, wealthy people who've given sadaqah. You know, they gave sadaqah to build a masjid, or they gave sadaqah for something important. They gave people food when they were hungry. And people remember it 5 years, 10 years, mashallah, this brother gave for the masjid, it was really helpful. Like in reality, 50 years later, 100 years later, 200 years later, 500 years later, we're sat here reading poetry of someone who lived 1,000 years ago, and we haven't forgotten them. Knowledge is what makes you be remembered even after you've gone. As does, of course, sadaqah jariyah. In the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إذا مات ابن آدم انقطع عمله إلا من ثلاث. When the son of Adam dies, all of his deeds cease except 3. صدقة جارية أو علم ينتفع به أو ولد صالح يدعو له. Either sadaqah jariyah, the sadaqah that's constantly being used as long as the sadaqah lasts. For example, man warratha mushafan, the person who gives a mushaf for the people to read. He buys a mushaf and he leaves it in the masjid. So everybody who reads the mushaf, they get rewarded from it. And as long as the mushaf is still being used, the reward is still there. Or they dug a well. And as long as people are drinking from the well, the sadaqah is there. أو علم ينتفع به, or knowledge that people benefit from. You wrote a book, you made a reminder for people, you taught your children knowledge, and they passed it to their children and their children and their children. You taught someone the Quran and they taught it to someone and they taught it to someone, and so on. أو ولد صالح يدعو له, or a righteous child that makes dua for you. And the scholars, they say, the only one who gets all 3 is the scholar. The only one that's guaranteed all 3 is the scholar. How is that? Min sadaqatin jariyah. Sadaqah jariyah, the knowledge the scholar passes on is sadaqah jariyah, because it keeps on being passed on and passed on and passed on after them. أو علم ينتفع به, and the knowledge that they benefit the people with. And waladin salih, they say the students of the scholar are like his children. And if they make dua for him, then it's like the dua of the child for the father. For the alim, the scholar, gets all three of that are mentioned in the hadith. إِذَا مَاتَ ابْنُ آدَمْ انْقَطَعَ عَمَلُهُ إِلَّا مِنْ ثَلَاثٍ. All three of them go for the scholar. For subhanallah, you think how much, we're not saying, again, don't take away from sadaqah. Sadaqah is a beautiful thing. But realize what you can get by focusing yourself on knowledge. As long as you're alive, it will benefit you. It'll be a light for you, it'll be a light for other people. أن تنوي رفع جهل أو أن تنوي رفع الجهل عن نفسك وعن غيرك. That you make an intention to remove ignorance from yourself and other people. It's going to remove ignorance from you, it's going to remove ignorance from other people. But even when you die, it will still be a reason for you to be remembered. As for the other wording, وَيَبْقَى ذُخْرُهُ, الذُخْر is what you store. It'll be stored for you. It'll be stored for you. Meaning that you'll see the reward of that knowledge going up and up and up, even when you're in your grave.
هو العضب المهند ليس ينبو تصيب به مقاتل من أردت. هو العضب المهند ليس ينبو تصيب به مقاتل من ضربت.
هو العضب المهند ليس ينبو تصيب به مقاتل من أردت أو من ضربت. العضب المهند is a sword, a very strong, sharp sword. So knowledge for you is a strong, sharp sword. It will never become blunt. ليس ينبو. It will never become weakened. It will never become blunt. You'll always strike the one that you want to kill. Here, there are two aspects. The first thing is that knowledge doesn't wear away. It's a sword that is always sharp. And it remains with you like a sharp sword that never becomes blunt. There's an interesting issue here. Some people lose their memory as they get towards old age. And that's something we ask Allah's refuge from. Min ardhalil umar, that we go to the stage of old age where we lose our memory. But one thing you can see is many of the scholars, we're not going to say every single scholar, like it is definitely a trend, is that it's very rare that you see a scholar lose their knowledge as they get older. Very rare. Often Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserves it for them like the sword that never ever becomes blunt. Rather, even if they lose other things like the awareness around their family and other things, like in the knowledge of Islam remains sharp, it never ever becomes blunt. As for his analogy here, or it's not the word analogy, it's the wrong word, his maybe simile here, تُصِيبُ بِهِ مَقَاتِلَ مَنْ أَرَدْتَ, is that knowledge also has another role, and that is defending Islam, defending the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the example the poet gives here is like the example of the sword. Sometimes you want to strike people with it, and if the sword is not there just to keep it in decoration, and sometimes you want to take that sword and you want to hit somebody with it. And that sword you're going to hit somebody with, in terms of knowledge, we talk about al-jihadu bil-qalam, and fighting in the way of Allah through the pen. And it's a sword that never becomes blunt. You never become too old to wield it, to defend Islam and defend the Sunnah from the things which are foreign in terms of it, things that are foreign to it, things that don't belong in it, bid'ah, innovations. That sword will never become blunt, and you'll be able to use it to defend Islam and defend the Sunnah. That seems to be what he means by تُصِيبُ بِهِ مَقَاتِلَ مَنْ أَرَدْتَ. Yani you'll be able to use it to defend the truth and to strike the falsehood. As in the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, قُلْ جَاءَ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلِ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. Say the truth has come and falsehood has been banished, and falsehood will always be banished. Always falsehood will disappear when it's struck with the sword of the truth. I don't know what's our first break in terms of salah and things. I just want to make sure we don't go over the time. 5:30. Okay, excellent. We have 15 minutes, inshallah. We'll also leave 5 minutes for any quick questions, especially in the text, where there might be differences, inshallah.
وكنز لا تخاف عليه لصا خفيف الحمل يوجد
خفيفة بالفتح.
وكنز لا تخاف عليه.
صحيح. عفوا, I told you خفيف, right? You can both خفيفة and خفيف. My fault.
وكنز لا تخاف عليه لصا خفيف الحمل يوجد حيث كنت.
يعني خفيف here, then it will be a description of the word كنز. وكنز لا تخاف عليه لصا خفيف الحمل. جيد. It's a treasure, knowledge. You never fear a thief. You're never scared that someone's going to come and steal it from you. It's light to carry, and you find it wherever you are. So the first thing is, knowledge is something that protects you, whereas wealth is something you have to protect. Like in the Athar of Ali ibn Abi Talib, in the advice to Khumayl ibn Ziyad, where Ali ibn Abi Talib is giving him advice, he mentions that Al-ilmu yahrusuk wa anta tahrus al-mal. Knowledge guards you. Knowledge keeps you safe. But you're constantly guarding your wealth, and you lock your car, you lock your house, you make sure everything's hidden, you put money in the bank, you keep everything, and you're scared of your wealth being taken, and you have to guard it. But your knowledge is the thing that's guarding you. So you're not scared of a thief coming to take your knowledge away. No one's going to steal your knowledge away. And that's why even Allah Azza wa Jal promises not to take knowledge from the hearts of the people. Allah doesn't snatch away knowledge where it was in your mind and Allah just snatches it away. But Allah takes knowledge away بِقَبْضِ الْعُلَمَاء, by making the scholars die. So the knowledge dies with them. So your knowledge is never going to be stolen away. And it's easy to carry. Tayyib, here's a question. When is knowledge easy to carry? The answer is بَلْ هُوَ آيَاتٌ بَيِّنَاتٌ فِي صُدُورِ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمِ. It is ayat, clear in the hearts of the people given knowledge. There's a very famous statement. There's a very famous statement that the only thing which is knowledge is what you take into the bathroom. Or in another version, there is no knowledge that you can't take into the bathroom. What does it mean? When you go into the bathroom, they say something like Al-ilmu ما تدخله معك الحمام, something like that. That knowledge is what you bring to the bathroom. What does it mean? It's not your books. You can't take your books into the bathroom, right? You have to leave it. What goes into the bathroom? What you memorized in your heart. That's when it's khafif al-haml. It's easy to carry it. It's easy to carry it when it's in your heart. It's not easy to carry it when it's in your books. Because then you have to carry your books with you everywhere. They're heavy. And you can't take them into the bathroom. You put the books outside. And that's why they used to say the knowledge which matters, or the real knowledge, is the one that you take into the bathroom. Meaning the one that you've memorized, not the one you carry in your book. The books are important. But ultimately, it's what you carry with you that is khafiful haml. It's khafif from one angle and thaqil from another, because Allah Azza wa Jal said, Inna anzalna ilayka qawlan thaqila, right? We've sent down upon you a heavy statement. We've sent down upon you a heavy statement. So Allah Azza wa Jal described the Quran as being heavy. Allah Azza wa Jal described the Quran as being heavy. However, here, or Allah said, "Inna sanulqi alayka qawlan thaqila." We'll send down upon you a heavy statement. So here, qawlan thaqila, Allah Azza wa Jal describes it as a heavy statement. Why here does the poet describe it as light? It's weighty in terms of its content, but it's not hard for you to carry it around. And it's easy. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. The Quran has been made easy to memorize. So will there not be somebody who will remember? So it's easy for you to keep it in your heart, to memorize it, but the content is heavy. يُوجَدُ حَيْثُ كُنْتَ. It'll be with you wherever you are.
يزيد بكثرة الإنفاق منه وينقص إن به كفا شددتا. فلو قد ذقت من حلواه طعما لآثرت التعلم واجتهدتا.
يزيد بكثرة الإنفاق منه. The more you spend out of it, the more knowledge you'll get. And that shows you that knowledge is something that the more you spend, the more you have. And again, the author is, or the poet is comparing it to wealth. The more you spend, the less you have. And in the Athar of Ali ibn Abi Talib, he mentions something similar to that. The more money you spend, the less you have. But the more knowledge you spend, the more you have. Because knowledge increases when you share it with people. When you study, you teach, you share, you help other people, your knowledge increases. وَيَنْقُصُ إِن بِهِ كَفًّا شَدَدْتَا. But if you hold it in your palm and you don't share it with people, it will decrease. And particularly if you're guilty of kitmanul ilm, concealing knowledge. Concealing knowledge. وَإِذْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِيثَاقَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ لَتُبَيِّنُنَّهُ لِلنَّاسِ وَلَا تَكْتُمُونَهُ. When Allah took the covenant of the people given the book, you will certainly explain it to the people and don't conceal it. Don't conceal the knowledge that Allah has given you. Here there's an interesting question. Is it ever allowed to conceal knowledge? The answer is yes, and there are evidences for that, like the hadith of Mu'adh, when the Prophet ﷺ told him, حَقُّ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْعِبَادِ وَحَقُّ الْعِبَادِ عَلى اللَّهِ. What's Allah's right over the people and the people's right over Allah? In the end of the hadith, Mu'adh said to the Prophet ﷺ, أَفَلَا أُبَشِّرُ النَّاسِ. Shall I not go and give the glad tidings to all the people? Shall I not go tell everybody? He said, لَا تُبَشِّرْهُمْ فَيَتَّكِلُوا. Don't tell them about it, so maybe they'll become reliant and lazy because of it. So if there's a reason to conceal that knowledge, there's an Islamic reason to conceal knowledge, yeah, knowledge can be concealed for a time, from a person, from a people at a certain time. Something that was not supposed to be shared or supposed to be secret. But there has to be a reason for that, an Islamic reason for it. Likewise, the issue of al-mudara, lal-mudahana, the issue of being wise in what you say, not compromising in your religion. So when you compromise in your religion, because you're not sharing your knowledge, you're keeping it to yourself, and you're doing that because you're compromising. But sometimes you might keep something to yourself because there's a wisdom in doing that. There's a reason for it. But no doubt the general principle is keeping knowledge to yourself makes it decrease. And that's why if you study something and you don't share it with anyone, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, a year, 2 years, and you've forgotten it. Hatta even the Quran, if you revise it, you teach it, you share it, you read it, so you remember it. and otherwise it's taken away. فَلَوْ قَدْ ذُقْتَ مِنْ حَلْوَاهُ طَعْمًا. And if you had tasted the sweetness of knowledge, لَآثَرْتَ التَّعَلُّمَ وَاجْتَهَدْتَ. You would have given learning precedence over everything else, and you would have worked hard. Al-Ithar is to give something precedence at the expense of something else. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. The people of Medina, when the people of Mecca came, they gave up what was theirs for someone else. And they gave precedence to the Muhajirin, and they made themselves suffer. Likewise here he said, if you tasted the sweetness of knowledge, you would have preferred knowledge over everything else. And you would have given up chasing the world, you would have given up your dreams in it, and you would have just said, I want to put all of my efforts into knowledge. And you would have worked hard for it. We do one or two more, and then inshallah ta'ala we'll take some questions inshallah.
ولم يشغلك عنه هوى مطاع ولا دنيا بزخرفها فتنتا ولا ألهاك عنه أنيق روض ولا خدر بزينتها كلفتا ولا ألهاك عنه أنيق روض ولا خدر بربربه كلفتا.
The first one, you don't have any variation for it. وَلَمْ يَشْغَلْكَ عَنْهُ هَوًى مُطَاعٌ وَلَا دُنْيَا بِزُخْرُفِهَا. The same, huh? Okay. وَلَمْ يَشْغَلْكَ عَنْهُ هَوًى مُطَاعٌ. You wouldn't be busy obeying and following your desires. And if you tasted the sweetness of knowledge, you would not be busy following your desires and following the sweetness of this world. And the reality is, we've already spoken about the hadith, Al-Kayyis man dana nafsahu wa amila lima ba'da al-maut, that the intelligent person is the one who takes himself to account and works for what comes after death. وَالْعَاجِزْ مَنْ أَتْبَعَ نَفْسَهُ هَوَاهَا. The one who allows his soul to follow its desires. That's what's keeping us away from knowledge. Is that we have hawa, we have desires, ahwa. And those desires, instead of fighting them, we're listening to them. Hawan muta'un. Instead of fighting them, we're listening to them. And that is why Allah Azza wa Jal said, وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ نَفْسِ وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. Whoever is scared of the status of their Lord or standing in front of their Lord and stops their soul from its desires. Doesn't mean you don't have desires. Every soul will have desires. وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ. The soul is always telling you to do wrong. But you now, the issue is, are you going to obey your soul or are you going to fight against it? What's making you busy is you're obeying the desires that your soul is whispering to you. And if it's not your desires that you're obeying, it's a dunya bizukhrufiha. It's the world with its adornment. Ad-dunya hulwatun khadira. The world is sweet and green. And it's a fitna. And Allah Azza wa Jal said, وَنَبْلُوكُمْ بِالشَّرِّ وَالْخَيْرِ فِتْنَةً وَإِلَيْنَا تُرْجَعُونَ. We certainly will test you with good things and bad things as a trial. So don't think that a fitna Don't think that the fitna is in bad things. The fitna is in good and bad. Are you going to be grateful? Are you going to become busy and leave your deen? Are you going to increase in worship to Allah or of Allah when Allah gives you from this dunya? So it's a fitna. It's a test. It's a fitna in good and a fitna in bad. And if you want to escape your desires that are calling you out, and you want to escape being fooled by the dunya and being put into trial, then the way to do it is with the sweetness of knowledge. Here, after the break, I'm going to stop here for a moment. After the break, I might try and find, there's a statement of Ibn al-Qayyim about overcoming your desires. It's very powerful. And I might read it to you, inshallah ta'ala. But there was a couple of, I think, hands up during the time of the class in case there were some points that I raised. You had one, yeah? Yeah, البيت التاسع. Yeah. What do you have, Rahman? I was on the 8th line. ويكسوك الجمال. What do you have for one time? Let's see. Yeah, that's what Abdurrahman also had. He read it also. So it's the two variation between the two. The difference between them. Yani اغترب is a person who is far away from إذا اغتربت, and he became غريب. He became far from his home. So that's the meaning. You're right, I didn't mention the meaning of the other one. ويكسوك الجمال إذا اغتربت, يعني إذا أصبحت غريبا. You became غريب. You became like far from your home, far from your family. It will bring you something beautiful. نعم. Give me the line. Which line are we in? It's a sword. Al-'adb al-muhannad is a sword, and which is al-'adb is a safe, and al-muhannad is one that is sharp. He said here, and I'll bring it for you, exactly what he said. The sharh. He said, Al-'adbu as-sayf. Al-'adbu as-sayf. Al-muhannad, he said, as-saqil al-qawi. And it's sharp and strong. To go back. Tarji'. Tar'awi. Yani tarji'. You go back to it. And some little bit difficult words, but they're good words to learn, inshallah. Habib. So al-infaq here can mean more than one thing, because zakatul ilm, if you look at what the Salaf said about zakatul ilm, giving zakah with your knowledge, they mean more than one thing. Some of them said zakatul ilm is acting on it. And some of them said teaching it. Here, al-infaq, either to act on it or to teach it. The apparent meaning is to teach it. Al-infaq is to teach it, because you share it with other people. But it includes, if you look at what they said about zakatul ilm, they say zakatul ilm, they include acting on it. Zakatul ilm is teaching it. Zakatul ilm is not concealing it. So there's more than one meaning to it. But it seems al-infaq, what you would understand from it is al-badl, that you give it out to people and you share it with people. Al-lisan is a thief, sariq. Ghatit. Ghatit is a type of, it's like a type of slumber, something like that. Let me just see if I've got some of them. I don't have an English translation for, but I'll get it quickly for you. Ghatit is snoring, yeah, snoring, yeah. And you're snoring away, and your life is going with it. Yeah. بيت الرابع. The numbering for me is off, huh? So which one do you have for Rabi? Because mine's numbering is, all of you is different. So just read me the first line. تنام الدهر. تنام الدهر ويحك في غطيت بها. And you go, so you تنام الدهر, you're sleeping الدهر, you're sleeping your whole life. في غطيت, الغطيت we said is like slumber, snoring, and when someone's in such deep sleep that you can hear them snoring. But when you die, حتى إذا مت, when you die, انتبهت, تنتبه, and you're going to pay attention now. When you die, you'll pay attention. ويحك, الويح is a type of توبيخ. It's a type of rebuke to someone. خفيف الحمل, normally when they talk about حمل العلم, they talk about memorizing it. And fahm is a different aspect. Understanding it is different. Because even in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فَرُبَّ حَامِلِ فِقْهٍ غَيْرُ فَقِيهٍ, perhaps somebody who will carry knowledge won't be knowledgeable, won't understand it. So usually when they talk about حَمْلُ الْعِلْم, they talk about memorizing it. And when they talk about understanding it, it's different. Like in understanding it, it's ثقيل, right? It's heavy. إِنَّا سَنُلْقِي عَلَيْكَ قَوْلًا ثَقِيلًا. And it's heavy to understand, it's weighty. But to carry it around, it's not like carrying books. I think we pause there, inshallah ta'ala. And we'll pause. I think we have a break for 5:30. Is that right? Inshallah ta'ala. هذا والله أعلم والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
جزاكم الله خيرا شيخنا.